A new report just revealed that a Bitcoin supply shock may be brewing. BlackRock's Bitcoin buying spree is accelerating as the ETFs now hold over 1.1 million coins. But this is happening at the same time that we're seeing some of the biggest Bitcoin treasury companies collapsing. It is brutal out there. So what comes next, and what does this mean for Bitcoin? Is paper Bitcoin summer officially over? Anyways, before we get into all of that, let's jump straight into this Bitwise report. Of course, I got Sophie with me today. Nico will be back tomorrow. He literally just landed on the plane, so we'll get back to the normal show tomorrow. Anyways, Bitwise dropped this report yesterday, and it's saying some interesting things. First of all, remember last week, I believe it was Thursday, when I was mentioning the story about sharks. It looks like smaller Bitcoin holders are coming back into the market. The 100 to 1,000K range Bitcoin buyers bought in bulk last week over or around 65,000 coins, not completely offsetting the hundreds of thousands of coins that the whales have been sending to exchanges. So there is still some amount of obviously coins that was not being totally bought up by smaller investors. But this Bitwise report is showing us something very interesting, and is that the institutions are starting to re-enter the market. And I think the timing, considering we're on the verge of seeing some rate cuts on Wednesday, I think it is very interesting to show. Essentially, as we've been showing you guys, telling you guys, if they do cut interest rates, it's basically a sign for people to look for profits elsewhere. And usually that means that assets and quote unquote riskier investments start to take lead. And we're seeing the data from Bitwise showing us exactly this. So the headline is crypto assets surge past equities as Fed rate cuts bet grow. Bitcoin ETF flows signal renewed bullish momentum. So going into this a little bit, crypto assets outperform global equities again, and rising risk appetite and increasingly probability for Fed rate cuts this week. This is probably why we're seeing this happen. Our in-highs crypto asset sentiment index has rebounded to a new one-month high, signaling a return to slightly bullish sentiment. The chart of the week is the rising risk appetite can also be seen in the reversal in global Bitcoin ETP flows. And this is where it gets pretty interesting. More specifically, flows into US spot Bitcoin ETFs have surpassed new supply growth across different time frames again, which has supported the latest recovery. So check out this chart. Here's the bulk of what is going on right now. Yes, we've been seeing some outflows in the ETF markets the last month, but it seems like they are reversing on that kind of position. They are buying a lot of Bitcoin. Well, through the ETFs, they're buying a lot of Bitcoin. Now, depending on what side of the aisle you stand, you may be thinking this is just paper Bitcoin. But if you're more of the checkmatey on-chain Bitcoin analytics perspective, you're kind of watching it and saying, oh, they're actually buying this Bitcoin. So you can see here that the last 5 days, let's start with the last 1 day, because then you start to see how big this increase is going. Of course, usually throughout a day, there's about 450 Bitcoin that are released via, Bitcoin's algorithm. And right here, they have 478. So this is a day and some change. The ETFs have bought 510 Bitcoin. That's like a 10x of the total supply that is released a day. These institutions are picking up. Now, the last 5 days, about 2,294 coins were released, and they bought 20,507 coins. The math is starting to get crazy. They're coming in bulk. I think everyone is pricing in a rate cut. Everyone is starting to, as I was telling you last week, deploy their capital. They're starting to get the market signals. They're starting to realize, okay, if they are cutting rates, probably don't want to be in the treasuries. Let's go in a little riskier bet. At least for us, Bitcoin isn't risky, but for most people out there, Bitcoin is still risky. And then the last 30 days, the last month, Bitcoin has released about 14,056 coins, and they bought a total of 22,853 coins. So the institutions are stepping back in. I think this is the price signal. This is probably why we saw the price recover over the weekend, is because they're buying in bulk. So we've been saying for a while, few things to watch as we all look for a market reversal and we all start to enter into Q4 and potentially rate cuts happening this week is a few indicators. One, of course, the volume coming in from retail. That's been non-existent. The second is the medium-size accumulator, or as people like to call them, sharks, and then the whales. Now, the whales have changed now. They're not just OG Bitcoin holders that are holding 10 to 100,000 coins. A new whale is on in the waters now. And of course, that is the institutions. And so they're stepping back in. And as I said last week, once we see the institutions step back in, the whales start to accumulate again, that's, I think, when we can get some clear signals that it's going to get extremely bullish out here. And this happened a lot quicker than I thought. I was saying last week, I'm sure we'll see it in a week or so. I tweeted on Friday, like, what did I say? Like pump incoming or something, blast off next week. And I know you guys have been calling me a bear because I've been watching these rate cuts and I've been taking a little more of a counter view on this. And I will talk about this a little later in the culture because Kobayashi Letter dropped some good data in regards to what happens directly after the rate cuts and then what happens a year out. So we'll talk about that later. But we're seeing the institutions now are coming in the market strong. They want Bitcoin. And so if you're sitting on the sidelines right now, I don't know what you're doing because I've been saying I'm starting to feel the vibe. It seems like they are, you know, the oracles are tingling here and it feels like we are starting to get some liftoff. So actually, here we go. Look, this is the ETFs and exchanges. You know, kind of dropping off the exchanges here. They have, you know, more than 1 million coins now, and they're not the only ones accumulating. I don't know if you guys saw, but we also saw that Strategy now holds 3% of the total Bitcoin supply. So even though there's been articles about Bitcoin, paper Bitcoin summer being over, specifically this one from Bitcoin Magazine, the end of paper Bitcoin summer. I don't know if you guys have been looking at the you know, stock tickers for Naka, Metaplanet, even Strategy itself. They're not doing so hot right now. I think Strategy looks the best right now in terms of price. And I think Sailor, out of any of them, are going to be able to weather this storm. But a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies are about, you know, 40 to 80% down from all-time high. They are getting absolutely nuked right now. So in hindsight, I'm feeling pretty good that I've been just staying in Bitcoin. But what does this all mean in like, you know, together? If you add all of this information together, it's starting to paint a very interesting picture. One, if quote unquote paper Bitcoin summer is over, if the sharks and the whales are coming back into the market to accumulate, if we're going to get rate cuts and it looks like investors are looking for a new investment because, hey, the safe haven assets are no longer the place you want to park your money and they got to look for an alternative, it is starting to set up, I believe, a bullish scenario for Q4. It's looking like Q4 is going to be extremely great for us here in Bitcoin, especially considering everything going on. So if there's no more paper Bitcoin and people have to actually buy Bitcoin and the appetite for these Bitcoin treasury plays are kind of going out the window. If you guys remember, during the summer, we were all wondering what's going on with the Bitcoin price, and it looked like the interest in Bitcoin was headed towards ETFs and the Bitcoin treasury plays. Not many people wanted to buy just spot Bitcoin. Well, it looks like that interest and that appetite isn't there anymore, and everyone's coming back to just accumulate pure Bitcoin. So going further, ending this up. Actually, we have one more little story. Let me show you this, guys. So I'm sure you guys remember Vivek Ramaswamy's company Strive, which is it's a fund, a company that invests in Bitcoin treasuries. That was their whole play. We're going to invest in Bitcoin treasury companies. It's pretty much a fund of Bitcoin treasury companies. Well, they just completed their merger and they accumulated, as we've been talking about, they finished the $750 million fiat accumulation strategy. And I am pretty sure we know where that money's going. It's either going to go straight into Bitcoin or it's going to go into Bitcoin treasury companies so that they can buy Bitcoin. So all of this together is starting to paint a picture that the price is is seemingly about to run, considering the institutions are back. The small, we would say maybe high net worth individuals are accumulating Bitcoin. I'm sure you guys are all out there stacking whatever you can. And the interest is no longer going into Bitcoin treasury plays, at least not for the moment. They seem to be pivoting for long-term profits versus the short-term profit gain we've seen. So I'm starting to get absolutely bullish for what's going to come. Maybe next week, maybe it starts this week. Who knows? So you're starting to see that gold and Bitcoin are pricing in these rate cuts. This is probably why we're seeing the Bitcoin price go up. Not necessarily just that there's some phantom, pricing in of the rate cuts. It's essentially showing us that the interest, these individuals are looking for an alternative. And they're like, okay, well, if no one wants to buy treasuries, everyone's buying gold, and the memetics of Bitcoin is going to go up harder than gold, a lot of people are looking at Bitcoin as a safe place, even though it's been a risky bet. And it's looking like these rate cuts are inevitable. It looks like it's going to happen. And I will break down what I think might happen. I think long-term, it's going to be extremely bullish. Obviously, more loose money, more easy money in the system means more liquidity. Liquidity drives Bitcoin price. So long-term, this is going to be extremely bullish for price of Bitcoin and assets. But it's looking like people are waking up. It's looking like people are dropping treasuries. They're dropping, or rather, they're going into gold. They don't want to be buying, government debt right now because it's not giving them the returns they want anymore. So just looking over this for a little bit, Bitcoin bulls have a clear resistant level to overcome at 117. We'll see if we can break 117 as the week goes by. And then, of course, all eyes are on the Fed as markets unanimously expect the first interest rate cut of 2025 to come on Wednesday. A historically accurate Bitcoin price forecasting tool demands fresh all-time highs for Bitcoin within weeks. Again, this is what I've been saying. Yes, I know you guys have been calling me a bear, but I think if the rate cuts aren't a buy the rumor, sell the news scenario, within weeks, within a month, I think the price is going to rip. I'm still a little on the fence of what's going to happen the day it actually gets announced. And then, the order books are hinting that large buyers are active over the weekend. Again, it looks like the large buyers are coming back into the market, which is obviously a good sign for us because as the tide goes up, it lifts all ships. So us minnows out there, we should be set up pretty good for a Q4. And then again, institutional demand was 9 times the mined Bitcoin supply last week, with the trend seen pushing price higher. So guys, things are setting up pretty good here in Bitcoin land. I know we've all been tried and tested and we're all wondering what's going on. Is Bitcoin being suppressed? Is, the bull run not even here? Is the bull run over? I'm starting to get bullish. I think, as I've been saying for a while, the end of the year is going to be great. We'll see what happens during this week. That could be a little more short-term volatility, but long-term, this is setting up a bullish scenario for all global liquidity, or even just more liquidity in the U.S. coming to Bitcoin. So I'm starting to feel extremely bullish, guys. And the anti-opti, indicator, we might be dumping, but the price is doing pretty good. It's looking kind of healthy right now. So, hey, the reason I've been bringing a lot of this stuff up to you guys is, again, Bitcoin now has a place in the macro markets. And so people that are traditionally just macro focused are looking at Bitcoin as a new player in the space. And this is why it's all becoming interlinked. And this is why we, I think, now have to kind of, at the very least, know what they're doing so we can have, or rather temper our expectations on the Bitcoin price. We no longer are just casted to the shadows and Bitcoin does its own thing. And it's only Bitcoiners in the market that drive the price. We have new players here. And I think this is why it's going to be a very interesting week for Bitcoin. So anyway, Sophie, what's your thoughts on Uncle Larry out here stacking all the coin?
I mean, it's pretty predictable. We've known that these potential rate cuts are going to happen this week for a really long time. A large majority of economists, according to a Reuters poll, have said that they expect a 25 basis points cut. So you know, I think they're keeping expectations pretty tempered, to be honest with you. In my heart of hearts, I feel like it might be a little bit more. In the worst case scenario, we don't get a rate cut at all. But then if that happens, I mean, Powell's going to get booted. That's just my opinion. I think that there is no scenario where there won't be a rate cut and we don't get a new chair of the Fed. So, you know, the odds kind of are in our favor. I think that the market is obviously showing that by, you know, stacking all of these ETFs. Remember that the majority of the players in the market are boomers and they like to stick to what they know. They're going to go on their Charles Schwab account and they're going to want to buy the ETFs because that is what they know. But those hedge fund companies, those instruments are going to have to be backed up by real Bitcoin at some point and at some point soon. So, because people are going to want to see the gains and they expect it for Q4. So, you know, I love that Bitcoin Magazine talked about the end of paper Bitcoin summer. And for me, that just means that real Bitcoin autumn is on the horizon. You know, get yourself a pumpkin spice Bitcoin, if you will. I love that. This next liftoff is looking very orange. It's with the times. It's very telling of the seasons. You know, they say you didn't that Bitcoin was discovered, and you know, this is like the nature of how it goes with you know, the aesthetic and everything. That's just my girly perspective. But on a serious note, I do think that, you know, it's inevitable that we are going to get a pump. We don't know how much and we don't know when. And we have to be very, very patient.
Yeah, I'm sorry guys, there's a good comment. Kudos. Pumpkin spiced Lambos for everyone for Christmas.
We love that.
Yeah, no, guys, like I know it's been a slow 2025. It's been extremely huge Bitcoin news surrounding our industry, probably the most bullish news cycle we've seen in forever. And the price has been pretty stagnant. And kind of diving into all of the data out there, it is looking like it wasn't so much paper Bitcoin summer. It's just a lot of people's number was 100K and they're moving a lot of coin to the exchanges. And now if the hype is leaving the Bitcoin treasury plays and going straight into Bitcoin right as Q4 happens and these rate cuts happen, I don't know, guys. I don't want to do the price predictions today because your boy is super cooked and I can't think right now. But I think it's all leading towards a very, very bullish end of the year. And as we've been seeing, there is a lot of economic uncertainty going on in the world. And there's a lot of people transitioning from TradFi thinking into a new modern thinking. People have to modernize their thinking right now because things are changing. We're seeing things rapidly change. And I think this is starting to permeate through people's thinking that, all right, we have to try something differently. And of course, that different move is saving in Bitcoin. So it's happening. 2025 is the year that it's happening. Now, it's going to just be very interesting to see how Bitcoin reacts to this in the next couple of weeks, or rather this week. This week will be a very important week to kind of recognize where Bitcoin is in the whole macro landscape. If Bitcoin does react, if the markets react bad and Bitcoin pukes on us, you know, then we know, hey, we're still highly correlated. If Bitcoin starts ripping just as gold was and it breaks away, it's going to be very bullish. I think all scenarios are bullish towards Bitcoin because we know what's coming down the pipeline. They're easing the money controls. There's going to be more liquidity in the system. And that all just means Bitcoin is going to rip, guys. So, you know, buckle up. Now is not the time to be selling your stack. Now is not the time to be trading. You should not be trading right now in such uncertain times.
Well, I think that
shouldn't be trading.
That uncertainty and the fact that people are buying gold at the levels that they are, it's at an all-time high, is kind of indicative that Bitcoin is about to follow next. So I think we just have to be patient. I mean, all the cards are set. All the obstacles have been moved out of the way for the most part. Of course, we still have people trying to fight Bitcoin, like we covered on Friday. But at the same time, the people with the money, the market is definitely dictating that they are ready for Bitcoin autumn. Look who we have. Look who decided to show up.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something. I thought you were going to say something.
I thought you were going to like hype us up for, the coming week.
I'm back. 2 months of tumultuous journey. And it's good to be home. Good to be home. So, yeah.
Yeah, you sound dead. You sound as dead as I feel right now.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Red eyes are not fun. Yeah.
All right, guys.
Go back to sleep, Nico. Go back to sleep.
Okay. Anyways, guys, right now is the time of the show where I want to remind you guys to, of course, smash the like button, comment on the show, let us know what you think, and of course, hit the subscriber button because we're dropping the best content, the most content, and put on your notifications. And then, of course, got to give a plug to our boys over at the Bitcoin Well. So if you want to buy Bitcoin, if you're sitting on the sidelines, you're new, you need a place to stack some Bitcoin, go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. It's the best place to buy Bitcoin because they never hold your Bitcoin. They will never hold your Bitcoin, which means they can never rug pull your Bitcoin. This is why we love them. You need a Bitcoin address to buy Bitcoin from them. Once your dollar's clear, you get sent Bitcoin directly into your cold storage. This is the best way. It's not the easy way, but it's the best way. It aligns perfectly with our view that self-custody is the revolution. So scan the QR code. Scan the QR code here, and you will get 3 tosses into the wishing well and a chance to win 1 million sat. So on that note, guys, let's get into the rest of the show. We got some interesting news coming from my ex-girlfriend in the ECB. She is tripling down on her CBDC push. And then we got some even more interesting news coming out of Thailand. It seems like they are freezing people's accounts. It seems like people are waking up and they're freezing accounts. So fourth turning is in full effect now, guys. If you still have money in the system and you don't want to wake up one day and your money's gone, now's the time to be buying some Bitcoin, or rather, the best time to buy Bitcoin was yesterday. And if it's not bought from yesterday, you need to be buying it now. Things are starting to heat up. It is getting crazy out there. So we got a good show for you guys. I'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates. Instead of just writing them down on paper, paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
And sorry, guys. Yeah, my back's super cooked today.
Opti's not okay right now.
I tweeted
Send
in the
thoughts
gym.
and prayers, love and healing,
Dude, I'm dying
and
right
smash
now.
the like button.
Yeah, I'm low-key dying on today's show, but the show goes on. Anyways, okay.
We're professionals.
Yeah, you're totally a professional.
Absolutely a professional.
Okay, I am over here on Clark Moody's dashboard. The current Bitcoin price is 114,700. We're at a negative 7.8 decline from all-time high. The market cap is at 2.29 trillion. And the block height, TikTok, next block, currently at 914,827. Okay, guys. So we honestly, when I saw this, I thought this was old. I was like, all right, we've heard this. Okay. You know, she's already already told us the CBDC is coming. She doubled down on the CBDC, told us it's coming in October. We're 2 weeks away, and now she is tripling down on a CBDC, basically saying, hey, we got to get this pushed through. I wonder why. I wonder why they want to push it through so quickly. So let's just hear the clip, and then we're going to roast her.
1 year on from the release of Mario Draghi's report on the future of European competitiveness, it remains essential to follow up on its recommendations with further concrete action and to accelerate implementation in line with the European Commission's roadmap. Governments should prioritize growth-enhancing structural reforms and strategic investment while ensuring sustainable public finance. It is critical to complete the Savings and Investment Union and the Banking Union to an ambitious timetable and to rapidly establish the legislative framework for the potential introduction of our digital euro.
Dude, read the room, Chrissy. Read the room. You know what is super interesting about this? Well,
The room is like literally asylum coded with like that calm blue, so that everyone just remains calm and peaceful. And it's like the world is literally on fire with the things that she's talking about.
Yeah, and also what is most funny about it is she keeps harping on this idea of financial stability, that, you know, oh, if we update our payment system, if we update our euro to the digital euro, it's going to give us more financial stability. It's going to keep us ahead. It's not going to stop the collapse we are seeing of the European Union's finances. The more they try to control the money, the more it's starting to become out of control, which is why you're starting to see her continue to double, triple. I'm sure she's going to quadruple down before October. But also, if you're reading the room here, it sounds like they aren't even ready to launch it, and they've been saying October. You know, if they don't have the regulatory framework, I'm guessing they don't have the code, which shouldn't be too hard. It's just an SQL, basically. They already have the Euro Digital. But you're starting to feel the panic. You're starting to see that they're absolutely terrified of what's coming, and they're just trying to move fast. And, of course, they're going to break some things. So, look, if you are in the EU right now, it is not looking too good. Your leadership is just continuing to barrel down into a dystopian, technocratic future, and they're trying to paint this like a good thing. I don't know what's going on from Chrissy's perspective. I think she is completely out of touch with what's going on mainstream, but they just don't care. They just want to continue to push the CBDC legislation. They want to get it launched apparently in 2 weeks. It doesn't sound like it's ready to be launched in 2 weeks. So there is a silver lining here. Maybe they won't be hitting their deadline. The more they screech about hitting their deadline, the more I know that they are struggling to hit this deadline. So, hey, look, the more we're seeing authoritarian rule over your finances, and this doesn't even account for, I don't know if you guys saw in the Financial Times, the Bank of England just proposed to essentially protect the system, that they're going to cap stablecoin limits from 10,000 to 20,000 pounds. So not only are they trying to push us into, or rather you, our European brothers over there, not only are they trying to push us into a wholly controlled digital system, but they're capping the exit rooms. They're capping the way you get out of it. They're capping the valves. So the more that they try capital controls, the more I know they're terrified. So this push is not a good look for the European Union. ECB completely out of touch. You're starting to see there is a war going on right now from the ECB and the Fed, or rather maybe you can say from Trump and the European Union, and they are scrambling for their control. And you can start to sense that they're terrified. And so they're trying to push this as quickly as possible. Who knows when they can get this to launch, but hey, you heard it from her. They're trying to get this launched as soon as possible.
I think that they're frankly terrified, because the reality is that the government in Europe can pretty much make this happen whenever they want. I think they haven't made it happen because of the ramifications that they know could arise from making a move like this. I mean, people aren't dumb. A lot of people will push back against this. We saw this weekend the protests that happened in the UK. Millions of people on the street. And of course, that's a cultural thing that has nothing to do with Bitcoin, but if you give these people one more thing to be angry about, I think that the same sentiment is just going to spread all over the other countries in Europe. And I do not think that they are thinking about how to roll it out. I think they're thinking about the reaction that it's going to get from people.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And I think the more, as you said, they are getting a lot of political protests right now. There's a lot of chaos going on, not only in the US or UK, but around the world. I don't know if you guys saw what happened in Nepal. These Gen Zers went, kudos to them. They're going buck right now.
And honestly, like, if they can pull something off like that, what makes you think that a bunch of not just Bitcoiners, but maybe there are people who have never even heard of Bitcoin, but they don't like the idea of the government overreaching and surveilling them through their purchases. I mean, it's not like they can't really do that now, really, with fiat, but just making it, this just makes it like a little bit easier. And it kind of takes away one of the obstacles that they have to go through in order to attain that information. So I don't know, man. I think, they have the power to push this through tomorrow if they want to, but a lot of the information that they're getting, from advisors is probably cautioning them to keep the temperature down. Right now, the temperature is very hot all over the world, and this is something that might break the camel's back.
Yeah, 100%. We're seeing this globally right now. And as I was saying last week, to wrap up the week, I think it's more important than ever for us Bitcoiners to be just sitting here, with open arms, waiting for everyone. It's taken a long time for people to catch up to everything that Bitcoiners have understood and have believed for a long time. But as we're starting to see countries panic, individuals panic, because no one really knows what's going on. No one is really paying too much attention. They're just trying to survive at this point. I think it's going to be more important than ever for Bitcoiners to be ready to get, people saving in Bitcoin, taking Bitcoin into cold storage. It's starting to be just very interesting to watch Bitcoin creators and inventors right now. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that BitChat, the new Bluetooth chat app by Jack Dorsey, was one of the most downloaded apps right now in this whole Nepal uprising. And so the tools that Bitcoiners have been building and will continue to build are starting to become some of the most important tools that we have at our disposal. And so again, it's just super important for us Bitcoiners to stay cool, calm, and collected and show, hey, look, there is a solution to these problems. You don't have to go out there. You don't have to do anything crazy. Like, the tools are here. You need to start saving in Bitcoin, using Bitcoin wallets and communication apps. They're here for us. It's just people haven't been ready for them. But of course, when they feel more pain, that's when they start looking for the solution. And it looks like there's been pain, and there might be more pain on the horizon. There might be as much pain on the horizon as I'm feeling in my back right now. But it's getting crazy out there. So it's just very interesting to watch that the world is kind of bubbling right now. There is a lot of tension in the air everywhere. And I think it's becoming very clear people are waking up to that there's very real problems, and they need some new solutions. And obviously Bitcoin is that solution. Bitcoin is hope. Anyways, on that same note, let's get into the news, because we're seeing some other crazy stuff happen that I think is a little under the radar, because it's not as catastrophic in sense of, protest and, as dramatic and graphic as all the scenes we saw around the weekend going on. But A lot of people woke up this morning and realized that the money they have in the bank is not actually their money and they can't get their money out. And this is why we're Bitcoiners. This is why we constantly tell you, you need to, at the very least, have a small nest egg already set up because things are going to continue to get crazy. So on that note, let's get into the news.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
All right,
Now
guys.
we're jamming out to our own music. I'm just like here
Oh man.
vibing.
Oh man.
I'm
Okay.
vibing for you, Update. I feel your pain.
I'm in pain, guys. I tweaked my back this morning, deadlifting, and I'm cooked. Anyways, it was my fault though, guys. I had some bad technique, and I am cooked. Anyways, enough complaining. This is a crazy story that happened. It is flying under the radar a little bit. I'm sure maybe you heard about it, but it is obviously not getting the same amount of fanfare that we're seeing of a lot of different political uprisings happening currently, because it happened silently. And this is a trend that we've been talking about for years on this show, that, hey, this might happen in the US or in any Western country right now. We've seen this happen in other countries, and they happen every once in a while. This might be one of the bigger ones that we saw. And of course, it's always under the guise of, protection from scams, or this is for your benefit, or, KYC AML laws. But this one is pretty huge. So the headline from Cointelegraph is, Thailand citizens are waking up to frozen bank accounts. Bitcoin, anyone? This is why we constantly tell you, this is why you need Bitcoin. So Thailand froze 3 million bank accounts in an anti-scam crackdown, ensnaring users and prompting debate over whether Bitcoin offers a safer alternative. I don't think it's a debate at this point. Obviously, there's people that are skeptics, but going into this, innocent people and businesses have reportedly been caught in the crossfire as Thai banks froze millions of accounts suspected to be, quote, mules for scammers over the weekend. The nationwide crackdown began in August, and weekend reports suggest that banks have frozen 3 million accounts and imposed daily transfer limits on all bank customers in the kingdom, according to the reports. However, the Cybercrime Investigation Bureau reported on Sunday that bank accounts of innocent online vendors and merchants are being frozen too after scammers adopted new methods to launder stolen money, according to the Bangkok Post. Meanwhile, the Bank of Thailand warned that more people could face freezes as authorities widen the dragnet and investigate mule accounts. Quote, we urge the public not to panic. The suspension is only temporary and will be lifted once checks confirm no wrongdoing, said Digital Economy and Society Minister Secretary Wisora At on Monday, adding that commercial banks may suspend suspect funds for up to 3 days, while the police may extend the suspension to 7 days. So Bank of Thailand freezes 3 million accounts, sets daily transfer limits of 50,000 to 200,000 baht to curb $6 billion bot scam losses. Absolutely insane what we're seeing right now. And of course, you know, it goes on. Expatriates reside in the country have taken to social media and online forums in droves to complain about being debanked or locked out of banking services in the country recently. Several have seen their accounts at specific banks arbitrarily frozen or restricted for weeks with no explanation. Resident foreigners now have to register their biometrics at their local bank in person and follow strict KYC procedures to make larger transactions with the mobile app. Absolutely insane. And of course, this is why we constantly say that if you know the old saying of don't put any money in Bitcoin you don't want to lose is starting to lose its weight here, because it's really don't leave any money in the fiat system you don't want to lose, because as things start to get crazier, as we start to see more societal, I don't know if collapse is the word, but more societal turmoil, this is exactly what happens. We haven't seen this fully happen in the West, except for what happened in Canada under the truckers' protest. But we are seeing this happen everywhere. And of course, it's very interesting that they use the guise of, you know, there was some scams. You guys are mules. We're here to protect you guys. This is only temporary. You'll get your money back. It could potentially be temporary. But the point remains the same. If you are leaving your money in a bank, it is no longer your money. This is why we love Bitcoin, because it's truly sovereign money. It's the only money you actually own, as long as you take your Bitcoin into custody. So absolutely insane what we're seeing. And to answer the question of the article, yes, Bitcoin is the alternative. This is why we are Bitcoiners. This is why we so fervently believe in Bitcoin, because we understand, hey, this may only be happening in Thailand right now, but it's only a hop, skip, and away from this happening in every Western country. If things do go crazy, the first thing they do is they shut off your money, because, you know, they don't really care about the citizens out there. But as we're seeing, they are using a bunch of different guises for this, whether it's the protection from scams, whether it's the protection from fiat stability. They will use whatever excuse they can or want to freeze your accounts. So if you are just a normal person, you may be asking or hearing this story and being like, what? Like, I'm not doing anything criminal. I'm not connected to scammers. It doesn't matter. As you can see, they're using a full dragnet, just a huge surveillance opportunity to cut anyone and everyone off the system. This is why we're Bitcoiners. This is why we wholly advocate for Bitcoin, because at some point, unless things start to get figured out very quickly, this is coming to every country near you. We've seen them talk about this constantly. The World Economic Forum has been talking about this. We're seeing the U.S. Treasury seemingly talking about something similar here. It's starting to get insane. And we all know once a country goes towards capital controls, it doesn't end good. So yes, this might just be happening in Thailand right now. We're seeing the UK is starting to implement capital controls. In the U.S., it's still up for debate what's going to happen. But as these countries start to lose control, the first thing they will do is they will try to control your money. And of course, they're going to use the term temporary. They're going to use these ideas that, oh, you know, this is to protect you from scammers. I'm sure if you woke up and your account was frozen, you'd probably be thinking only one person was a scammer here. So look.
Wait, I thought one of the, hold on. I thought one of the perks of having a bank account is that, you know, to a certain extent, your funds are protected, because, you know, let's not kid ourselves. There are a lot of scammers in Bitcoin and in the crypto space, right? But the difference here is that Bitcoin empowers you to take that responsibility into your own hands. There is no hacker that's suddenly going to go into a banking database and leak all of your, you know, passwords and information and just drain your bank account. And even if they did, supposedly the bank should cover you for a certain amount, right? I thought that was one of the perks.
I don't know if Thai central bank has FDIC insurance like US Bank. I'm sure that's not in.
Damn. Then Thai people really need to get on their
They need
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
They need Bitcoin
Yeah.
because if you don't have that insurance, then literally not like forget about the government being able to do what they can do because I mean any government can do that. Any private institution, central government can or central banking system can do that. That's just like it is what it is. But the fact that scammers can hack this system and just take all of your money and you have no recourse in getting it back, like if you're already going to like bear that kind of responsibility, you might as well be your own bank and have your Bitcoin in self custody where hackers can't get to it. And scammers will only steal from you if you let them. Like, let's be real. A lot of people, they are victims to it, and it's not their fault, obviously, especially elderly people who don't really know how all of this works. But you at least have the opportunity to learn, right? If you're asleep halfway across the world and someone else is logging into your bank account trying to hack all of your information and just draining your bank account and you have no ability to stop that, like that's completely out of your hands. At least with scammers, you can, educate yourself and learn how to avoid those types of situations, especially if you have your Bitcoin in self-custody or have some sort of system like, multi-sig or anything like that. There are ways to protect yourself in ways that not even apparently these central banks can do for you. So the fact that this happened should be a huge wake-up call for Thailand. I mean, my heart is with everybody who had their bank accounts frozen. Cash must be king right now over there. I mean, I don't know how these people are surviving, but if they have Bitcoin and if they are, trading peer-to-peer with other Bitcoiners, they are, probably in a better position than most.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think the scariest thing is like it just happens overnight, You can think your life is good and then the very next day you're just completely shut out of the system and there's no warning, and if you didn't prep beforehand, you're in shambles. And that's what we're seeing happen. And we've heard this happen for a lot of people in Western countries. And this is why I think Bitcoin is that revolutionary money, is because once you hold that money, you can't be stopped. And I think that's one of the most important things for most people to understand. I know in the West, we are very comfortable and we think that will never happen, but we've seen this happen a lot of times throughout the history of man. And we have a tool now. As I was saying earlier, we have all kinds of tools now to protect us from this stuff. And so you don't have to take this type of abuse from your country, from your local bank. This doesn't need to happen anymore. There is an alternative, and it is Bitcoin. And so, shout out to everyone in Thailand right now that got their account froze for no reason. I think this is only going to ramp up. I think it's going to continue to increase until, morale around Bitcoin starts to increase, until people start waking up to Bitcoin. This is going to continue very silently, very subtle. And then once that big moment comes, once that watershed moment comes, it will come down even more violently. And so you want to make sure you have savings in Bitcoin, or else this could be one of us next. So that's like the most important thing to be talking about.
And people in Europe, this should be your warning. This should literally be what you are afraid of, because this is one of the many consequences that may arise if Chrissy Lagarde gets her way and passes this CBDC and makes it, kind of a mandate for everybody to use it. And Europe is weird because cash is very, very widely used in Europe. So imagine if that system just changes overnight, to where the government maybe doesn't mandate a CBDC, but they like heavily push it. I really do think that people in Europe will not stand for that. And this, what happened in Thailand should be a warning.
I don't know. It looks like the people of Europe like to get pushed around right now. I don't mean to make light of it, but
I don't know. There have
We'll
been
see.
certain revolutions that have happened
a long time
they-
ago.
Well, they're very known for protesting. And I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope in people. I think that people have had enough of government overreach, enough of the policies that have led them to feeling this disdain for their politicians. So, you know, something's going to break the camel's back. I hope whatever happens is peaceful. And again, the best way to keep it peaceful is to just defund these systems by opting out, buying Bitcoin, putting it into self-custody. I can't tell you how powerful that is and how scared these people are of you doing that. Because the thing is, when people get violent, that's when the government can use the excuse to be violent back. So the best thing that you can do is literally be peaceful, opt out, and defund them by buying Bitcoin and putting it into self-custody. It's the most powerful thing that you can do in this lifetime right now.
Bars, absolute bars. This is the way. Okay, guys, let's we're gonna wrap up the show and in 1 minute and talk about what potentially these interest rates are going to do and what they have done historically. So
You got this, Opti.
we're almost through.
We're almost at the
going
finish line.
we're gonna end on some macro stuff. So hey, if you don't want to hear the macro stuff, we'll see you tomorrow. But a lot of people have been loving the macro
keep
stuff.
Watching.
A lot of people have been loving the macro stuff. So we'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, bitcoinben.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Ben's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank, and you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys, tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth, and join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinben.io, join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
Okay. Okay. All right, guys. So you guys know I've been on a macro kick, and you guys were trolling me on Friday, Thursday, I think all of last week, basically, because I was taking a potential view that when we get these rate cuts, it might not do exactly what you think is going to do to the market. Everyone has essentially been saying, once these rate cut comes, guys, like, it's all green. All the markets are going to start pumping. Like, free money's coming back. Money printers back on, guys. Liquidity up the wazoo. Bitcoin is pumping. And while I agree with that long term, again, Kobayashi Letter has been doing a good threads on what exactly is going with historical data here. So first one is, I'm going to cover kind of what has happened in the past, and then we're going to go into gold, because I think that is what is probably all of the signal right now. So Kobayashi letter goes, the time has come. On Wednesday, the Fed will cut rates for the first time in 2025 and, quote, blame a weak labor market. This will be just the third year since 1996 when Fed rate cuts while the S&P 500 is at record highs. So what happens next? And this is where it gets interesting. Again, you got to remember, Fed rate cuts with S&P at all-time high. I don't know if you guys saw S&P 500 ripping as well. And so, in fact, U.S. stock valuations have reached their highest level on record, according to Bloomberg. This surpasses the dot-com bubble and 1929 peak before the Great Depression, but it may be justified as the world experiences its biggest technological revolution in 20 plus years. So if you're looking at this just, based on the data, this is probably why we're seeing a lot of like doomer stuff come out from very prominent Bitcoiners, like, oh, the dollar is going to collapse tomorrow. Because like, look at this chart where we're basically at a bigger bubble than the dot-com bubble, the Great Depression. And then the opposite view is, yeah, that's true if you're looking at the data, but also we're seeing a technological revolution driven by, the Mag 7 and of course AI. And this is where you start to really ask yourself, okay, are we in the middle of a fiat debt bubble, or are we seeing, the improvements via technology that we've always been promised? And this is where it starts getting a little tricky, because I think we are seeing improvements via technology, but we are also in the middle of, as Ray Dalio has been saying, a debt crisis, and hence while all these valuations are getting super crazy. Anyways, it's a rather unique situation for the Fed this time around. Typically, the Fed cuts interest rates in a weak economy with stocks well below record highs. While the strength of the economy is up for debate, GDP growth remains robust. GDP is growing at 3% per year, which is basically what they like. This is like good for them. They're like, we're killing it. Anyways, and inflation data is not running hot again. This week's data showed core CPI inflation at 3.1. It's kind of in the ballpark of the metrics they've been talking about. In a broad-based rise across the board, core inflation is now 110 bips above the Fed's long-term target. Meanwhile, the debate is whether to cut rates by 25 or 50, or even Trump was saying 100 bips this time. So I don't think the debate is anymore whether they're going to cut rates. I think the debate we're seeing is how much are they going to cut rates, and that will tell us some signals depending on how big they cut. I know a lot of people have been saying we're probably going to see 2 rate cuts happen, back-to-back months. We'll see how deep they are. We'll see if they even do. That's kind of where it starts to get interesting. And as they wrap this thread up, here's why. The labor market is cracking, forcing the Fed to cut rates. The index of U.S. customers saying jobs are plentiful declined to 34.1 in July, the lowest level since 2021. This is down roughly 22 points over the last 2 years as the labor market has materially slowed down. I've been hearing a lot of rumors and speculation and secondhand accounts of people saying like, hey, I just graduated college. I have all of the requirements for a good job and I still can't get a job. It's getting a little rough out there for a lot of people. Anyways, amid GDP growth, hot inflation, and the AI revolution, stocks are partying. The S&P 500 just closed at its 24th record high of 2024 and is now up over 35% since April's low. This marks one of the best 5-month rally in S&P 500 history, in line with the 2008 recovery. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Rate cuts will add fuel to this fire. We expect the Fed to cut interest rates by 25 basis points on Wednesday, with the S&P 500 at a record high. There have been 2 years since 96 where rate cuts have happened with stocks at a record high, 2019 and 2024. So what comes next? When the Fed rate cuts within 2% of all-time high, the S&P 500 typically loves this. In 20 of the last 20 times this has happened, the S&P 500 has ended higher 1 year later. Again, in a year, we will probably be looking back at this and laughing about it, because it's just going to basically add rocket fuel. I've been seeing Mel Madison, I believe his name is, on Twitter. He's like, everyone is forecasting a recession. He's like, S&P 500 is an all-time high. It's going to be absolutely higher. He's a bull on Bitcoin and gold. He's like, guys, assets are going to go absolutely skyrocket here. And I totally agree with that. Now, it is interesting, though, that this data from Kobayashi letter is showing us the short term, maybe a month out could be a little different than we see 12 months out. So the S&P 500 has risen on average of 13.9% over the following 12 months. And then, however, over the immediate term, this is where I've been getting called a bear here, because I'm like, look, we might be in for a market correction, a short market correction, but a correction nonetheless. So over the immediate term, such as the next 30 days, results are more mixed. Since 1980, the S&P 500 has fallen in the following month 11 out of 22 times that this has happened, particularly in the late 80s and 90s. Stocks saw weakness over the short term. You can see here, it's going to be, if it does dump, it'll be a short dump, and then it's going to rally afterwards. So I'm not saying it's over here. All I'm saying, this might be what plays out. I know long term, a year out from now, we're going to be looking back and we're going to be having a party because of all the liquidity. I am totally on board with that. I'm just saying, when these, come in and people finally make up their mind and they start to invest, or rather pulling some investments, we will know who has, no clothes when the water recedes here. So that's kind of what Kobayashi letter is saying. They expect a similar outcome. There will be immediate short-term volatility, but long-term asset owners are partying, guys. So look, I'm not saying that it's over here. All I'm saying is there could be some volatility this week because of all the different stuff going on. Now, I have been hearing a little more positive voices out there that saying, guys, everyone that is planning for the dollar to blow up or a recession to be on the horizon isn't looking at the right data. I think assets are going to rip. And with that, I am starting to lean towards that idea that the Mag 7 equities, stocks, S&P 500, they're ripping at all-time high. Gold, everything is ripping right now. And I think it's obviously this idea of a technological revolution. Now, I'm not the biggest AI guy, but you are seeing there is a lot of capital going into AI, and that is fundamentally changing our world as we speak. It is fundamentally shifting because of AI. Now, will it completely take over everything? I don't know. I've been kind of trolling and saying it's glorified search engine. But as they're saying, interest rate cuts are coming into rising inflation and the AI revolution, only adding fuel to the fire. So gold and Bitcoin have known this. This is why they're running. The straight line higher price action we have seen in these asset classes, pricing in what's coming. Gold and Bitcoin know lower rates are on the horizon, and it's only going to push assets higher. So it's great to own this long term. This is what we're seeing long term, that it's, you probably want to be buying Bitcoin right now. You probably need to be holding Bitcoin right now. But I think another interesting thing we are seeing play out in the markets is what's going on with gold. I've been covering the metric for you guys that central banks have accumulated more gold than treasuries, first time in 1996. And we're starting to see that gold is starting to take treasuries' place as the reserve asset. Now, do I think we're going back to a gold standard? Absolutely not. But if they are accumulating gold at the moment, it is telling you something's going on in the system. If they are kind of rewriting their playbook, it is showing you there's a shift going on. And so this is a great tweet here. In January 1980, gold reached $850 per ounce, an equivalent to $3,590 in today's dollars. And during one of the most turbulent periods in the U.S. economic history, marked by a collapsing currency, runaway inflation, and recession. And today, gold is trading above that at a $3,650 per ounce. I think it's even higher this morning. And it has surpassed that milestone and is up $39 year to date. With rate cuts on the horizon and inflation showing little sign of slowing, the bull market for gold and other hard assets appear far from over. And of course, the other hard asset is Bitcoin. Now, I think this is some of the biggest signal here. Gold is money and sovereign debt is no longer the reserve asset. Central banks are buying a lot, but they need a lot more. For gold to account for 60% of total reserves, central banks would need to purchase an additional 40,000 to 60,000 tons of physical gold, doubling or tripling their current holders. Gold up versus debt index down. You are starting to see there is a shift happening. Wow. Whether this is going back to...
It's like we're living in parallel realities
literally
with gold.
Literally,
like people are buying the ETFs. We need to back it up with real Bitcoin. People are buying paper gold or whatever. And they're gonna have to back it up with real gold at some point, right?
Yeah. Opti AI. Well, no, dude, I'm too
Large
stupid.
language Opti.
I'm too stupid to be. Look, this is how I know I'm gonna have a job forever, because ChatGPT can't be this regarded. Okay, it can't dumb itself down to this level. But yeah, what we're seeing is very interesting. I think all eyes are on the Fed on Wednesday. We will be very clear by the end of the week of what's going on. Again, I think Bitcoin's going to start ripping. I think October is totally in play, but this week could be very interesting. I am, maybe hedging my thinking here, where on the one hand, I think the markets are going to rip. That's kind of the more bullish take. I think markets are going to rip with interest rate cuts because everyone's already pricing this in. They're probably just waiting for this to fully be announced so that they can kind of take a deep breath and then make their moves now. The smart money, as we're seeing in gold and Bitcoin, is already pricing in rate cuts. And so who knows if this is a sell the news or buy the rumor, sell the news scenario.
I think what usually tends to happen, or the way that I would think if I was an investor in this position, is like people are buying a lot of assets right now, whether that be Bitcoin or on the S&P 500, whatever, whatever floats your boat. And then they probably, whatever they buy will probably like pump a little bit upon the news, whatever news we get. And then they sell because they just want the short return very quickly. And I think that's why it dumps, because the majority of people tend to sell right when they see that small increase. That's kind of what they're used to and what makes those sorts of investors happy, the majority, the normies. And people forget that Bitcoin is a long-term investment. So are you okay? Oh, I know. But people forget that, Bitcoin is a long-term investment. And, while we might see some volatility this week, we might see it for 2 weeks. We've been through worse, Bitcoiners. We this is nothing for us.
Yeah.
If we just hold for a little bit longer, hodl, our famous mantra here, I think we will be very fruitfully rewarded, and the charts, the history just points that out. It's happened before, so you gotta chill.
Yeah.
Opti needs
I'm getting cooked. I'm getting
a literal like shot of tequila right now for the pain.
Guys.
I feel so bad. Last week it was me. Like I was having pain in my mouth last week and I could barely talk, and now he's having pain in his back and he can't sit. So we're just like wrecked.
It's a rough Monday. It's a rough Monday. But yeah, to your point, Soph, we could be seeing something like that. We could see the price rally and then maybe dump as people try to position themselves. But I think as the data shows and as everyone's kind of been thinking, and look, you guys have been trolling me the last week or so because I'm trying to rationally look at the market versus just think of the memes here. We know long term this is going to be extremely bullish. More easy money in the system, more liquidity. This is going to rip. Now I'm just trying to brush up my prediction mechanisms here, and we'll see who's right. On Wednesday I will come on the show, or maybe it'll be Thursday, probably Thursday. On Thursday I will come on the show and we can go all over this again, and we'll see what the markets are actually doing. But it is very interesting what's going on. You're starting to see a lot of change go on in the system. You're seeing a reordering of the monetary system, or the monetary order around the world. And I do believe Bitcoin has a place in the middle of all this. As we're seeing, we're growing up here and people want some Bitcoin. So on that note, guys, I gotta go lay on the couch, dude. I gotta sign off. So I love you guys. We will be back tomorrow. Nika will be back tomorrow, same time as always. On that note, peace out. Touch some grass. Don't hurt your back. Get some sun. All that good stuff. All right, later, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.